Time for the Daily Take, and here comes Geraldo Rivera. Hello, Geraldo.
Hey, Connell.
You know, on the ICE shooting yesterday, I know you, and I think you were right to do so, we're saying let's take some time here and figure out what's going on before we say who he was targeting. Now officials today are coming out and saying, from the evidence that they've gathered, the clear target was ICE personnel, even though the person who was killed was a detainee. Thoughts on what's coming out of Dallas today?
Well, it's clear that the killer was motivated by his hatred, his irrational, perhaps, hatred of ICE. He carefully planned it. He left plenty of documentary evidence behind to indicate his clear motivation was to kill federal officers, to stop, a group that he really loathed, the ICE agents. He did a very bad job of accomplishing his deadly goal. He killed exactly the people he pretended or intended, or both maybe, to help. He killed the detainee. As you point out, we thought it was two, but two are in critical condition. One is dead, and this person who saw himself as a hero, perhaps, for the migrant community, instead is perhaps an inadvertent murderer. It also indicates, Connell, as you know, that these ICE facilities will have to be hardened. This is now becoming contagious, and this whole rooftop thing with the one disgruntled kid with a rifle, with a scope, 200 yards, 300 yards. These kids, these miscreants, are good at this one thing, and we have to rethink. ICE, they have a tough job. I feel sorry for ICE officers. I've editorialized often about my feelings about masks.
Yes.
Still, these guys are doing their job. Men and women are doing their job. They are not the ones setting the policy in Washington. They should not be targeted. And this fool in Dallas ended up killing exactly the person or the people that he intended or hoped to help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As you said, not making the policy, so to blame them for that seems counterproductive. And from a practical standpoint, having better security in place would certainly make a lot of sense. It comes in this, in this time in this country when we're having this discussion about, both sides versus blaming one side for the political violence, and the president again today blaming one side, as he has many times. Here's what he said earlier in the day when he was in the Oval Office about that, President Trump.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left, and it's going to get worse.
Talking about Congresswoman Crockett there. So again, that's what he says every time, and he was just asked
totally
about
gratuitous.
it.
I don't know. It's so insulting. Why do you have to go there? I don't understand that about President Trump. As long as I've known him, I've never figured out why he sometimes just can't stop himself or doesn't care to. And he, calling them low IQ individuals. This is a person who's elected to Congress. She's whatever she is, she's not as you describe, and I think it's really unnecessary. And he went
She's
on.
talking
in that
now,
soundbite.
by the way. Just one second, Geraldo. Is that live, Claudine?
Okay, sure.
Where on the outside? This is Congresswoman Crockett. Just for a moment, this is live.
That were the victims. The fact that we have someone who was entrusted with the care of these migrants, regardless of their status. She was entrusted with their care, and the fact that she cannot acknowledge that while these people were entrusted to her care, they ended up dying. That is a problem. The first thing that should have come out of her mouth, the first thing that should have come out of anyone's mouth that was engaged with this investigation is who died. Instead, a lot of people were sitting around believing potentially that officers had been harmed, that officers had been killed. And then the next thing you know, they're saying, yes, this guy was targeting officers, and he may or may not have been. We just want full transparency. But at the end of the day, we know that based on the information we've been given, that this assailant then decided that he was going to take his own life. everything that I've seen in my experience, and those of you from the Dallas area, we remember what happened that terrible June day when officers were the target of a shooter. We know that that shooter, specifically with thousands of people everywhere, continued to fire at officers, and there were no civilians that were harmed. And he was going to continue to go after officers to the extent that they sent a robot in to kill him. So honestly, it doesn't quite mesh. And until I hear from Dallas PD, which I know that they have competent leadership at Dallas PD, I will continue to look at everything that I am given by DHS and FBI and wonder whether or not we're getting the truth, or if we are getting more political propaganda to continue to stoke the division in this country that continues to lead to terrible outcomes.
So
like
Geraldo,
what we
she's
saw
responding.
on that day.
She's responding, Geraldo, to the news conference that we carried live like an hour ago, I suppose, and some of the information has been put out by the Department of Justice Attorney General on down about this shooting. And the president, you know, we had just coincidentally played that soundbite of the president taking a shot at her specifically earlier. So I guess Jasmine Crockett still has questions.
Question about that. If you look at how this investigation has started since the tragedy unfolded yesterday, it was to create this narrative that this was done by left-wing radicals. And that's been the narrative from the very beginning, and it is now. That's why we have no information about the victims. They want these victims to remain faceless, so they can
you know, I lament it, but here.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Geraldo. I'm sorry.
I said it yesterday. What happened to Charlie Kirk was obviously very...
I think that if we're talking about lowering the temperature, calling someone's, attacking someone's IQ is not the way to do it. And he went on to say, we cut his soundbite a bit short. I thought that he went on to say the last sentence was, if they better watch out, or it was a threat that the right was going to attack the left. That's the way I interpreted it. I thought it was totally unnecessary also. But you know, there's too much of this kind of rhetoric that's just going to lead to more violence, and it's not going to have a happy ending. It's going to motivate people to do things that are foolish and at times even deadly. Connell.
Not a great time. You know, it seems like every day or every other day we got something. And yesterday was Dallas, and now that's the back and forth you heard from the president and from Congresswoman Crockett. Now, here's another topic for you, Geraldo. Do you think they're going to indict? I mean, apparently they're bringing it to the grand jury. The former FBI Director Jim Comey. That's something the president also talked about today. There was a lot of back and forth about what happened with the U.S. Attorney in Virginia, forced out, not only with potential Comey prosecutions, but also Letitia James in New York apparently didn't want to prosecute there either. The president wanted to move forward. Here's what Trump said today about Comey specifically.
Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
All right. Do you know what's going to happen? I mean, he claims he's not getting involved in it. But
I don't know. I know that I was close to President Trump when Comey was one of those people who were a predator on his peace of mind. Comey was absolutely no help at all in the Russia investigation. In fact, he treated the president with a kind of contempt, kept him at arm's length, never allowed him to have a real relationship with the DOJ. Really was a terrible tenure for James Comey. I did not like him. I thought that he was treacherous in his own way, going around leaking stuff. Having said all that, I hope the grand jury does not indict him, because I doubt, in my lawyer's hat, that there's any way they can convict him. How do you prove that someone intentionally lied, particularly in something as complex as Russia, and everything else that was going on? Well, they say, I don't recall. Well, there's a lot of things going on there.
Right.
I don't see that it is in any way legally possible, well, practically possible, to get a conviction. I hope the grand jury ends up a no bill, that they decide not to indict him, because I believe that it will be a fruitless effort. just adding more fuel to the partisan fires.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, the allegation would be that he lied to Congress. To your point, you have to have the intent, not just saying something that's untrue. The intent matters in this case. Final topic, though, Geraldo, I want you to weigh in on Ukraine. I mean, the president was with the president of Turkey today with Erdogan in the Oval Office and said, stop. I don't want you buying Russian oil was the basic headline that came out of that. But it comes, of course, on the same week as this President Trump, has kind of really changed his tune on Ukraine. He says they can win. And, now everybody wants to know what's he up to? Does he really believe that? Is it some sort of negotiating tactic? What's going on?
Well, just very briefly about Turkey. Turkey is a NATO member,
yes,
but it's a very unusual kind of NATO member. It's a NATO member that, as far as I know, is selling drones to Russia, certainly buying Russian oil. It just seems counterproductive to the NATO goal. Having said that, I do think that Erdogan has some qualities that are very admirable also. I don't want to just paint him as a miscreant. He's not. He's an effective leader. But the headline, of course, Zelenskyy says that he will run for office. People have been saying, well, he's a dictator, he's an autocrat of a different sort. He's not elected, he's postponed his elections. Zelenskyy says, help me beat Russia, and I promise I will hold elections, and I believe him.
So he'll leave the job. He did an Axios interview. So you think Zelenskyy he's for real, he'll step down as leader if they win, or if the war's over?
I do. Yes, I do. I think that Zelenskyy he is a hero. He's a hero for the ages. I think that, he should be decorated by every country that he visits. He's someone who has done an amazing job. They thought that Russia would roll over Ukraine in 3 days.
You think they can win now, for real?
I remember. I just remember, the thought occurred to me, Zelenskyy, in the first couple of days, everyone's saying, we can evacuate you and your family. The Poles are going to send a plane. The French are going to send a plane. The British are going to send a plane. Probably the United States offered to send a plane. He said, no, I don't want a plane. I want ammunition.
Right.
I want the ability to fight back. And his country dug in, and they fought back against one of the world's great superpowers, the Red Army, the Russian army. And he stood and, with his citizen soldiers, has done an amazing job stalemating them after all these years. I'm so glad that the president finally sees who's the good guy and who's the bad guy between Zelenskyy and Putin. And I think that Zelenskyy, I just pray that, that the president is right when he says that the United States now is going to give NATO all they can handle to give to Ukraine to fight the Russians, stalemating the Russians. They said they gained a quarter of a mile at the cost of thousands of lives. This thing should be over. Yeah. Zelenskyy is the Medal of Honor.
Paper tiger, those Russians, apparently now. Man, what a week, though, with these comments.
Paper tiger.
Yeah, now, how about that, Vladimir? All right, Geraldo. I'll talk to you soon. The great Geraldo Rivera.
So you don't call me the paper correspondent.
Never.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.